I don't know, I'm not happy flying like this. Which I think means that's the end of this seaplane flying for this trip.
This video is of my attempt to take Archie flying in our seaplane for the first time ever. And how and why it led to a mistake, a huge mistake on my part that I've only realised now, looking back 6 months later, going through this video footage to do the voiceover to get the video published. This was without a doubt the worst day of flying seaplanes I've ever had in the 7 or so years I've been flying seaplanes. But the thing is, it shouldn't have been a day of flying seaplanes at all. It got dangerous 3 times in a very short space of time, as you'll see. The sequence of events leading up to this flight put me into a state of mind where I shouldn't have gone flying. Did I know that at the time and go anyway? Or is it only now, looking back, that I realise that was the case? Could I and should I have handled it differently? This was actually my second trip flying the seaplane to Norway. I'd already been for an 8-day trip 3 weeks earlier, when I had 3 days on my own and then another 3 days with Clara, flying on the fields, and it was just all beautiful. There's some amazing challenges in that, and there's a playlist of all of those flights, which I will link to. Where are we going?
We're going to the airport. I can see a blue one coming this way.
Idling a seaplane while tied to the dock. What could possibly go wrong? Just warming it up so that the engineer over there can do the oil change. So me and Archie are down here for our first seaplane flight this morning, but we've already got complications. These are the complications that you don't get with normal flying, just with seaplane flying. And the complications are that moving a seaplane on a dock is very difficult. At the moment, the plane is facing towards that wall, so I can't start it up there because it had to be turned around to have its oil change done last night. And I need to swap these 2 planes around. And there's quite a strong breeze, although it's sheltered here. And so on my own, there's no way I can swap these planes around. So I've got to go and find someone else to help me move these 2 planes. And even with 2 of us, it's complicated. We've got to bring that 206 and drag it back here, and then get this plane, turn it around and have it on the front. This situation would prove to be a major factor leading to the multiple mistakes I made later, but not the biggest factor. Time consuming, tricky, but all part of the fun of seaplane flying. You got it, Archie? Me and Archie just quickly taking the Scandinavian Seaplanes minibus to go and get some fuel. My little helper has just helped me. Got 105 litres of 98 unleaded there. The plane. He just helped me do all the lids up. So I'm going to put it in the bus and head back. So these guys are very gently, very kindly helping me move these planes around. They're waiting up there for me to depart. Make sure my wing doesn't hit that tail, and then they're going to put that plane back in the bus for me. Don't let go unless it starts. It had been an unexpected 5 exhausting hours of pre-flight preparation, and things hadn't even started to go wrong yet. I'd put too much pressure on myself. It was Archie's first flight in the seaplane, but this turned out to be a much bigger deal for me than for him, as you'll see.
First land approach, November, Lima November 1 kilo. Start that again. First land approach, seaplane, Lima November, India Kilo Oscar.
That shambolic radio call shows just how flustered I was.
Kilo 1016, Lima, seaplane, Lima November, India Kilo Oscar is waterborne at Sandviken, taxiing to the north for a takeoff to the south, and I'm going to need clearance into the first land CTR. Once I'm airborne, I'll be turning right into the zone to turn to the north.
Lima Kilo Oscar, Roger, Sama.
This video is a great example of 2 things. Number 1, when, as a pilot, you are the issue and shouldn't be flying. But how do you know when you should call it and say no go? And why didn't I? Number 2, that filming a flight for YouTube has highlighted the cause of the issue in hindsight, that otherwise would have gone unchecked. If it wasn't for filming it, this lesson would have gone unlearned. So when you're taxiing on the surface of the water in a seaplane and the wind gets too strong, and this is typically as little as 10 knots, it is difficult, and in this case impossible, to turn the plane downwind.
Okay, so my problem here is that the wind from the south is too strong for water taxiing. So I've been forced, the wind has blown my tail around, so I'm now facing into wind again, which is the opposite direction I need to be going. So I'm trying to get back into the relative slightly less windy conditions in the harbour and try again. Full right rudder, full left aileron. I'm having a bit of problem with the wind.
Why?
It's very strong.
Oh.
That's making it difficult to get where we need to go.
Oh.
So what happened was I was taxiing the right direction, and then the wind caught the tail from behind and blew it around and made the plane do that, and I couldn't turn back into the direction I wanted to, downwind. So I turned into wind, got back into sheltered water, and then managed to come back up my track. It was actually yet another thing that added to the tension I was feeling.
So carb heap closed, cow flaps open, seats and stick. Mind your knees. Okay. Well, so far so good. We're now taxiing downwind. We should have a pretty easy takeoff. There's just me and Archie and about 2/3 fuel. No luggage in the hold. Water rudders up. That's both.
So problem number 1 of 5 in this flight was the strong wind making it difficult to taxi downwind, but I did overcome that problem successfully. Problem number 2, which was as a result of me failing to do my proper pre-takeoff checks in the cockpit, which was definitely a result of my state of mind being tense, overstressed, and also feeling I was against the clock because time was marching on. And it was this: I had not closed the latch on Archie's door properly, and at the beginning of the takeoff run, this happened. And I continued the takeoff run with the door open, fully unaware that it's open. But at some point I realised it was open and I closed it and latched it properly. But suboptimal, I think, is a generous term to describe the idea of the door popping open next to your 4-year-old son on his first seaplane flight.
Lima Kilo Oscar airborne, Sandviken.
Lima Kilo Oscar, roger. Shuttle 1750, resume on navigation Aloti.
Problem number 3 of this flight. This is the problem that I referred to in the opening clip of this video, where I think that there's a problem with the plane, meaning there'll be no more flying in the seaplane trip.
Cable's coming loose, I don't know. I'm not happy flying like this. Which I think means that's the end of this seaplane flying for this trip.
And I was wrong. There was nothing wrong with the plane. What had happened was in fact this: when you are taking off in a seaplane, because you've got no grip on the surface, the tendency for planes to pull to the left, single engine airplanes to pull to the left when you go on full power, is stronger in a seaplane even than it is on a land plane, or at least it feels that way. So you need a whole bootful of right rudder to keep the plane straight on its takeoff run when you're taking off in a seaplane. The mistake I made, which I didn't realise until a long time after the flight, was that my state of mind and my tension, both mentally and physically, meant that as I took off the water, I didn't release the right rudder. So we took off, and I'm trying to fly straight and level with a boot full of right rudder in, which, for those of you that don't know, means the plane will start to turn right. So I was counteracting that with left aileron. So I had hard right on my foot, hard left with my hands, wondering and panicking slightly as to why do I need so much left to keep this plane fly straight? I was actually at full left aileron and starting to bank right slightly. But as far as I was concerned, there was something wrong with the airplane. There was nothing wrong with the airplane. I remember panicking afterwards and ringing Daniel about it and saying, I think there's something wrong with the ailerons, I think there's something wrong with the rigging. So, but problem number 4 was this. Flying along, and I suddenly hear this immensely loud bang. I can feel it. I feel the vibration of the bang. Engine's running fine. Everything feels fine. Plane feels fine. Engine sounds fine. This bang happens again. Bang! Really loud bang.
Oh Jesus, we've got a...
Hear a tap, tap, and that is the sound of the fender that I had failed to untie from the front strut of the plane on the pilot's side, which has gradually ridden up the front strut that's diagonal, so that rather than flailing in the wind, it's now hitting the side of the fuselage.
He's taken off with a buoy fender attached to the float, so it's slapping around in the wind. So we need to go back and land. And also I'm not happy with the aileron setting at all. Lima Kilo Oscar returning to Sandviken.
Lima Kilo Oscar, order so.
Lima Kilo Oscar inbound from the north, southbound landing Sandviken. Okay. Alright, we've got a dock. I can't believe Archie's asleep. Unbelievable. That was a very bumpy flight and I can't believe he's asleep. Well, that was challenging. And now docking I think is going to be equally challenging.
All this way to bring Archie's flying seaplanes, and he just falls asleep. Oh, the irony. I haven't docked in winds this strong on my own before. So the reason I decided to return was because I was on almost full left aileron and the plane was still turning to the right. And in the climb out, once I got up straight and level, I still needed a lot of left aileron, but you know, maybe a cable's coming loose, I don't know. I'm not happy flying like this. Which I think means that's the end of this seaplane flying for this trip. Baby boy, Archie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's time to wake up because we've got to get out in a minute.
Hey.
Another thing that added to this was that Archie's door popped open while we were flying. I think the bumps on takeoff. I looked round and the door was a couple of inches ajar while he was fast asleep next to it.
This was the 5th problem with the flight, and it led to another very dangerous situation. I had failed to bring the plane far enough to the right for the pilot's side to come up alongside the dock, which is what I had intended to do. I'd now cut the engine. I had no more control authority. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen, and I got out onto the wrong float, as you can see first, and realised that the other side was actually going to be the one that hit the dock. So I rushed back through the cockpit, poor battering Archie as I went through. And by the time I got to the other float and was out in the plane floats had bumped the dock and the wind was blowing the plane backwards from the dock quite fast. I had a split second to make a decision. Do I just stay on the plane, climb back in to try and restart it and go around again? Or do I make a jump for the dock? But before I do that, remember, I've got my 4-year-old son in the plane. If I jump for the dock, I've got to make sure I've got hold of the plane. I didn't want to get back in the plane because the plane was not under power and was pointing in the wrong direction for me to start it again. So for better or worse, I made the decision to try and jump for the dock. The rope that I had in my hand, you can't see, it wasn't properly untied and wasn't long enough. And as I jumped for the dock, the rope actually held me back. I slipped and bashed my knee on the concrete corner of the dock. But I was actually at least on the dock. I wasn't fully on, but I was sitting on it. I'd half made it onto the dock. The wind was pulling the plane away and the rope had run through my hand, and Archie was in the plane, awake, alone, and I was holding the plane. I had nothing else to hold on to on the dock. I couldn't reach a cleat or anything. If I can't hold onto this plane, I'm going to have to dive into that icy water and swim out to the plane. And as you can see, I just managed to pull to hold it together and get it onto the dock. But it came very, very close to that plane floating away with Archie in it. Let's say it was just the crowning turd on a flight that should never have happened.
So there's the offending fender, the offending fender, which was making a hell of a racket slapping on the side of the plane, which has ridden up that float strut in the airspeed. It is a breezy day and we're sheltered here. There's about 10 knot wind at the dock, which is grabbing the plane and moving it around a bit. But out there, see that windsock, about 15 knots out there. That's what made the docking so difficult. But my real failure on that was failing to notice the fender tied on. One of the worst things is that I can't get those two GoPros that are on the left wing. There's one on the strut, there's one on the tip of the wing. The one on the tip of the wing is still recording because I can't get out there to turn it off. I managed to stop this on recording with the voice command. But at the moment the wind's too strong for me to turn the plane around on my own, so unless I can turn it around, I can't get those GoPros in, so they'll be out here all night. I'll get them in the morning. Managed to turn the plane around in that quite strong wind. Luckily the wind actually helped me. It was working with me, not against me for a change. That's the end of today's flight, boys and girls. Good days and there are bad days. Not a good day. Archie's been amazing, incredibly patient. So how was your first seaplane flight, Archie? Well, you don't know because you fell asleep, didn't you? You actually slept for the whole flight. You were asleep before we took off, and you were asleep until I woke you up coming into the dock. Oh well. We've had a lovely day, haven't we, hanging out? That's the important thing.
The final thought on this lesson, and I suspect it's probably a parenting lesson as much as a piloting lesson, which is, as you'll have seen from the footage, Archie slept through the whole thing anyway. I didn't need to push this. In my head as a parent I was doing it for Archie as well as for myself, but actually he'd have been fine. He'd have been fine waiting until the next day. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're a pilot, I hope you took something useful away from it and you could perhaps avoid the same mistake. It reminds me of a much, much worse tragedy of another seaplane pilot who did a story, which I will link to here, explaining how a similar state of mind matter affected his accident. But it's a tragic video to watch, that one, so be warned if you do watch it. But if you enjoyed this video, I'm happy to report that the next day of flying was a happier one. So if you enjoyed this video, do watch the next one, which will be coming out very soon after this one if it's not already out. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one. Bye bye.